The porch light was on when I pulled into the driveway. I noticed it before I shut off the engine, that small, warm circle of light spilling across the concrete. It shouldn't have been on. I was certain I'd turned it off that morning. I always did. It was a habit I'd had for years, long before I lived in this house. I sat there longer than I needed to, my hands resting on the steering wheel, the engine still ticking softly as it cooled. The light didn't flicker. It didn't feel threatening. It just felt wrong in a quiet way, like a sentence that ended with the wrong word. I told myself it was nothing. The neighborhood was still, no wind, no passing cars, just the faint hum of distant traffic and the soft buzz of the porch bulb. The house looked the same as it always had. White siding, dark windows. The front door closed. Nothing out of place. I finally got out of the car and stood there for a moment, looking at the house as if I were seeing it for the first time. The air was cold enough that I could feel it in my lungs. Early winter. The kind of cold that doesn't bite yet, but promises it will soon. As I walked up the driveway, I noticed something else. My wife's car was gone. That part didn't register immediately. It was only after I reached the front steps and turned back out of habit that the absence settled in. The driveway was empty except for my car. It had been that way for weeks. Longer than that. Still, some part of my brain had expected to see it there. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The house was quiet. Not the kind of quiet that comes from peace or sleep, but the kind that feels held together like it's waiting for something to happen. I stood just inside the door, listening. The heat was on. I could hear it moving through the vents. That surprised me. I turned it down before leaving for work. The house felt warmer than it should have. I set my keys down on the small table by the door. They made a sharper sound than usual when they hit the wood. The echo seemed to linger. "Hello," I said. My voice sounded wrong in the space, too loud, too present. No answer. I took off my jacket and hung it on the hook by the door. As I did, I noticed the faint smell of something familiar. Not strong, just enough to catch my attention. Lavender. It was subtle, mixed with the normal scent of the house. Cleaning products, old wood, warm air. But it was there. I stood very still. That smell hadn't been in the house since the funeral. I told myself it was memory. Scent has a way of doing that, bringing things back without asking permission. I'd been thinking about her more lately. That was all. I moved farther inside. The living room lights were off, but the lamp by the couch was on. I hadn't left it on. I was sure of that. I always turned it off when I left. Another habit. One of many that had formed since I started living alone again. I walked toward the lamp and turned it off. The click was final, satisfying in a way I hadn't realized I needed. The house felt different in the dim light. I went into the kitchen next. The overhead light was on. I frowned and flipped the switch. Darkness settled in, broken only by the faint glow of the stove clock. 6:42 p.m. I checked my phone. 6:43. That was fine. Normal. On the kitchen counter near the sink was a mug. It was blue, ceramic, chipped slightly on the rim. Her mug. I stared at it longer than I should have. My first thought wasn't fear. It was irritation. A small, almost reflexive annoyance that she'd left it there instead of putting it in the dishwasher. That thought came and went before I could stop it. The mug was empty, completely dry inside. It didn't look recently used. It just looked placed. I picked it up and turned it slowly in my hands. It was warm, not hot, just warm enough that I could feel it through the ceramic. I set it down again, carefully, as if it might break if I moved too quickly. I told myself the heat must still be circulating from the dishwasher, or the house, or something. I didn't check the dishwasher. I went down the hallway instead. The hallway light was off and I didn't turn it on. I walked slowly, letting my eyes adjust. The walls seemed closer than usual. The house always felt smaller at night. As I passed the bathroom, I noticed the door was open. The mirror above the sink caught a sliver of light from the kitchen, just enough to reflect the hallway behind me. I avoided looking at it. That wasn't new. I'd been doing that for a while. I continued toward the bedroom. The bedroom door was closed. That stopped me. I stood there, my hand hovering near the knob. I hadn't closed it that morning. I never closed it anymore. There was no reason to. The handle was cold when I touched it. I opened the door slowly. The bedroom was dim, lit only by the faint glow from the streetlight outside the window. The bed was made, not neatly, just made. The blankets were pulled up, the pillows arranged the way she liked them, the way I never bothered with anymore. I stood in the doorway, my chest tight in a way that felt familiar now. I told myself this was stress, grief, memory playing tricks, the brain trying to make sense of loss by filling in gaps. I stepped inside. The air in the room felt heavier, warmer. The smell of lavender was stronger here. I crossed the room and reached out, touching the edge of the bed. The sheets were cool, normal. On the nightstand was a book, not mine. I picked it up. It was one she'd been reading before she died. I remembered because she'd mentioned it, said she wasn't sure if she liked it yet. I hadn't seen that book since the hospital. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I flinched. I took it out slowly, my heart beating a little faster now, though I didn't know why. Notifications didn't scare me. They were part of life. The screen lit up. A text message from her. I stared at the name at the top of the screen. The same contact photo she'd always had. A picture of her taken on a beach years ago, squinting into the sun, half smiling. The message preview was short. I'm home. I didn't breathe. The room felt very still. Too still. Like the house itself was waiting. I unlocked the phone and opened the message. I'm home. That was all it said. No timestamp error. No weird symbols. Nothing out of place. My first thought was that someone was playing a cruel joke, that her phone had been turned on somehow, that the number had been spoofed. My second thought was that I hadn't given her phone to anyone. It had been buried with her. I sat down on the edge of the bed without realizing I was doing it. The mattress dipped under my weight, familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. I typed a response before I could think better of it. Where are you? The typing indicator appeared almost immediately. 3 dots. They pulsed slowly. I came back the way I left, the reply read. My hands were shaking now. Not violently, just enough that I noticed it. I swallowed and typed again. That doesn't make sense. There was a pause this time, long enough that I started to hope the conversation would end, that the phone would go quiet, and I could convince myself this was some glitch I'd imagined. Then my phone buzzed again. I know, she wrote. It didn't for me either. I stared at the door. The hallway beyond it was dark. I didn't hear footsteps. I didn't hear breathing. I didn't hear anything at all. My phone buzzed again. I didn't want to scare you, the message said. I thought you'd be asleep. I typed slowly, choosing each word. You can't be here. The response came after a longer pause. I know. Another pause. But I am. The bedroom door creaked. Just a little. I looked up. The door was opening, inch by inch, as if someone were pushing it carefully, trying not to make noise. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I didn't scream. I just sat there, watching. She stood in the doorway. She looked like herself, mostly. The same height, the same hair, pulled back the way she wore it at home. The same sweater she'd owned for years, the one with the loose sleeve she was always tugging at. Her face was pale, not sickly, just drained, like color had been gently erased rather than violently taken. Her eyes met mine. I'm sorry, she said softly. I know this isn't how it's supposed to be. Her voice sounded right. That was the worst part. I couldn't speak. My throat felt tight, like it had closed in on itself. She stepped into the room. The floor didn't creak under her feet. I didn't feel anything, she continued, as if we were having a normal conversation. At first, it was just quiet, and then I was here. I finally found my voice. "You're dead," I said. She nodded. "I know." She came closer and stopped a few feet away, close enough that I could see details, the faint shadows under her eyes, the way her hands rested at her sides, fingers slightly curled. "You shouldn't be here," I said. "I didn't want to stay there," she replied. It was empty. She sat down on the other side of the bed. The mattress didn't move. That broke something inside me. I stood up abruptly, backing away until I hit the wall. My heart was racing now, loud in my ears. "This isn't real," I said. "I'm not doing this." She looked at me with something like sadness. "I was hoping you wouldn't say that." The house creaked then, just once. A settling sound, normal, familiar. "Why now?" I asked. "Why tonight?" She looked down at her hands. I didn't know where else to go. I shook my head. "You can't stay." She looked up at me again. "I know." The silence stretched between us. "I just wanted to come home once," she said. "I wanted to sit here. I wanted to be warm." The lights flickered, just once. I squeezed my eyes shut. When I opened them again, she was still there. The smell of lavender was stronger now. "You need to leave," I said, though my voice lacked conviction. She stood up slowly. "I will," she said. "Soon." She walked past me toward the door. As she passed, I felt a sudden cold, like standing too close to an open freezer. She stopped at the doorway and turned back. "You don't have to look for me," she said. "I'll know when it's time." Then she was gone. Not vanished, not dissolved, just gone. The bedroom was empty. The bed was still made. The lamp by the couch flicked off in the living room. I stood there for a long time. Eventually, I sat back down on the bed. My phone buzzed one last time. "Good night." I didn't reply. The porch light was off when I checked later. The mug in the kitchen was cold. The book was still on the nightstand. Some nights, when the house is very quiet, I think I hear the bedroom door open. I never look. I don't know if she'll come back. I don't know if she ever really left. I only know the house doesn't feel empty anymore. And I'm not sure that's a good thing.